not exactly endearing himself to fandom at the minute with some of the way he's going out there. At the minute, Doctor Who needs every friend it can get. It really has to re-energise its fan base and the wider audience. And I think some of the statements we've had so far is alienating a good proportion of the fan base, and that's never a wise thing.
Indeed.
No. Anyone else on where you stand at the moment?
I'll go with the backup, John. I'm also on the fence. The episodes that we had before, they were good. I wouldn't say they're spectacular. I wouldn't say they're going to rank up there with any classics of the series. But again, they were better than what we had.
Yes.
So that is tough. And we came from an era that really under impressed. So anything looks better. And also, I think right now he is his own worst enemy on publicity. For a person that who I always kind of interpreted as being smarter on how to better publicize your product, he's saying a lot of things that are alienating a lot of people. And so a lot of people are turning off just because they find him to be obnoxious. So we're wondering if this idea of who really is the star of the show. Is it the doctor or is it the producer? And has the producer become the celebrity? Granted, in the 80s, we didn't, JNT wasn't on social media, and that was a good thing. He only had the fan magazines. Maybe we should have, like, someone talk to Russell. Maybe you should uninstall your Instagram and your some of your social media things and just
Hasn't that already happened, Michelle? Hasn't certain people, I don't know if it's Sony, Disney, or BBC or Bad Wolf, had to have a word with them about some of the things he's posting?
Very possibly, and I know it's happened in the past, like another franchise, the Snow White movie with Rachel Zegler. There is a story that she was called into the Disney headquarters and chewed out for some of the things that she was saying on social media and interviews, and was basically told to tone it down, that she was doing more harm than good to her. The other thing is, we are all in social media. We're all on a platform. We're going to get criticism. And that's all right. Sometimes you just got to just ignore it and not always respond to it. Not everything is a battle. And granted, some of the things the fans have said have been rude, but the way he's responding back to it has also been just as bad.
So shall we set a few rules for the beginning of the debate? Because like we said, we want to give tribute when necessary, and then so we look fair. Which is, I hear what you're all saying. A lot of what you're saying is him behind the scenes, what he's saying, not in the episode. So we'll park that for a moment. We certainly will look at it. But regarding judging the merit of his first era and his stories and what you've seen from the four we've seen so far, what's our happiness level regarding what we've seen from the 4 specials compared to what we saw in the first era?
It's night and day. It's night and day. It's like a different version of RTD has turned up. Remember, see, we're all forgetting as well that the specials were supposed to celebrate the 60th anniversary, which they didn't. Right? So if you're a Doctor Who fan and the show hits that milestone, as a fan, you want a celebration of the 60 years beforehand. That's the whole point. But this seemed to be a bit of a vanity project for RTD, bringing David Tennant back, bringing Catherine Tate back. I mean, you look at all the things that he did to try and rejuvenate the show. It didn't have the impact that it was supposed to have, and it's mostly on him. See, the problem with the RTD in 2024 to RTD in 2005 is that RTD in 2005 couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Also, on top of that, he had the BBC to rein him in. In 2024, he doesn't have anybody to rein him in because this is a Bad Wolf Studios production along with BBC and Disney Plus. There's nobody there to say, hang on a minute, RTD, some of your statements might be alienating the fandom. But you look at what he's produced is nowhere near what he produced in his first era, and that's what shocked me the most. We do know, and I'll give him these flowers and the credit, he has wrote some excellent stories. Even away from Doctor Who, he's established himself as one of the best writers out there, without a shadow of a doubt. He comes back then to do Doctor Who, and all of a sudden now, this is the problem. It's too soap opera now. That's what he wants.
Yeah.
He wants a
Well,
drama. Doctor
And
Well,
he's
Who's
a
let
a
me-
huge
soap
soap opera
opera.
fan. He's a huge soap opera fan.
Yeah.
well, let me just and also we just interject with a few things. Me and Hugh did do a show ages ago now, it feels like, where I think we were fairly balanced, weren't we, Hugh, regarding our judgments and discussion.
I mean, I think if anyone hasn't seen, obviously, our show, which was marvellous, etc., then please go and watch it on the internet. If anyone hasn't seen the documentary Imagine about Russell, I thoroughly recommend it. I think it's fascinating, and I think it tells you a lot about why there's such a difference.
So, and I enjoyed our chat. I think there was a lot of things came out of that. It was very interesting. But just because of what Michelle was saying and Noel was saying, I also wanted to say we did do a big show to achieve global success. Do the BBC and Disney need to slay fandom? And of course, RTD in how he is either going to follow canon or not. And also, since Michelle was talking about relationships and all the rest of it and soap opera, one of our big hitters, please look at it on YouTube. Too much sex in the TARDIS. What's your view on that one? So it's all there, and these are some of the criticisms of the era I'm well aware of. So I know we're all itching to talk about his politics, some of the issues that he's been talking about, but just looking at, I mean, I think the Four Specials is not a bad place to start because it's his most recent production. And if we talk about I mean, briefly, generally speaking, the vibe we're getting from the Four Specials and any little rumours, we really don't think we're getting a repeat of RTD1. We think we've gone into a different category.
He said so himself. I mean, the hard part is where there has been so much said off screen that it's almost difficult to separate the episode from the producer and the showrunner because there's so much, beep, 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 beep. Think of it like, I almost think of it as like, Pac-Man. Beep, 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 beep. It's hard to separate the two of them. I mean, I try to separate it over Davros Gate, and then something else happens. It's hard to separate the two. I had no problems with the Destination Scarrow until he started talking about representation, and he didn't listen to people who are in actual wheelchairs, and it just, my brain blows up sometimes.
There were two funny things. I mean, please, people, just tell me what you think about where we stand now before we go itching into various details. The Davros you've just mentioned, well, when we did the documentary, me and Hugh discussed this documentary, I found it ironic that with all the fuss about Destination Scarrow, there was his Davros B&M doll on the top shelf, so he wasn't too offended. But equally, he also talked about the Daleks in that story, and he said we were thinking about, whether you have flying Daleks, spidery Daleks, and he was talking about how you can't adapt a Dalek. He said otherwise it becomes just a robot. And so you started thinking, but you've just adapted Davros. I don't understand what you're saying, mate. 1 minute you can adapt, 1 minute you can't adapt. And when you pick convenient limits and convenient moments you can stretch the artistic license, I can't deal with it myself. And so I understand your frustration, Michelle.
It's like he's trying to satisfy two masters. I don't think the show right now, because I'm seeing this in a lot of criticism of a lot of the media of who is this for? Is this for the fans? Is this for the newbies? And nobody knows right now. So I don't even think they know who the show is for. And granted, some of this isn't RTD's fault. He did come back and inherit a franchise that was failing. So he is in an extremely difficult position. It's like trying to save the Titanic after it's hit the iceberg. But at the same time, he's not helping himself either because he's become his own worst enemy. And so right now, I still try to be hopeful. I still want the next season to do very well. I've always said for a long time that I suspect this next season they're trying to figure themselves out, and they may rectify some of the mistakes in season 2. We just kind of almost hold on, and I hope we can hold on. So that's just kind of like my gut feeling, because I want this to succeed. I am a huge Doctor Who fan. I want this to be good.
By the way, the answer there was, it was Jane or Julie, wasn't it, Hugh, who said it was a pastiche of the entertainment in the 1980s Doctor Who.
Yeah. Which, you know, I think you have to be at least respectful, even for some of the worst parts of Doctor Who, because people were trying. Because if you're not respectful for that, then you won't get the respect back. I hope he's trying to do something new and interesting, and that's good. I'll wait and see if it happens. I didn't see any of that in the 4 specials. I thought it was really rather empty, was the feeling in the end.
Yes, I thought it was almost like it was meant to be entertainment rather than storytelling. It was light on story. It was big on moments. But let's start with our kind of critique of RTD properly. So if I just show you this, it was on Screen Rant a while back. Doctor Who, 10 Ways Russell T Davies was the best showrunner. Now, I'll start one off and then just so we're being fair on our judgment of him. So the first one that was listed was the story arcs. Hallelujah for Russell Davies. He gives us story arcs. I mean, Flux wasn't a story arc. It was more of just an absolute mess as far as I was concerned. But can we give him that one? Can we give him that one? That Russell Davies, now he's back, we're going to get good, decent story arcs.
No. He was never good at that.
I remember, Hugh, ages ago when whether we were even doing the giggle, I can't remember what it was, but you did actually say that this thing about they're not really narrative arcs at all. You just said
you can't stick Bad Wolf on random walls through 13 shows and say that's a story arc.
John, your thoughts on the great story arc writer?
Doctor Who survived many years without them. I know they're sort of de rigueur amongst a lot of genre shows these days, and well, in these days, but for many a year. I don't necessarily think the Doctor Who needs them. And if he does need them, then I would rather have the lightness of touch of Bad Wolf and the Saxon thing than I would some of the heavy stuff that Moffat did, which you had to scrutinise the show several times over, perhaps, to get the benefit of. Can I return to what you said before we moved on to this? Because I never had a chance to say my little bit, which is unusual for me, which is I'm wondering, and I think the question has to be asked, why has he come back at all? You know, what made him, after year after year after year, saying, Doctor Who's passed to me, Doctor Who's gone to me, I won't even write an episode again. And all of a sudden now, we speculate, and it is speculation, fairly strong speculation, that he was invited back to save the show. Because Doctor Who's a viable brand, which was going to get dead in the water. And Russell T Davies, because of his lineage and because he brought the show back, which was from basically a brand that was tarnished and rubbished because it didn't have a great reputation, either in the country or from the BBC. And he brought it back, and it was a rip-roaring success, both in the UK and internationally. So he's bagged that. He's got that. He has his legacy. So why would he choose to come back, even to say that again, if he thinks he can't do it? He obviously thinks he can. But I just wonder if there's a certain attitude of hubris here. Does he really have the talent? Certainly, it said earlier on the thread, on the basis of the 4 episodes we've seen so far, it looks as though he's referencing a lot of the stuff he's already done and doing a sort of 2.0 of Midnight and Sound of Drums and all that sort of stuff. Or is the alternative, the reason why he's come back is because he's a man of a certain age and he wants to bang out a message. And Doctor Who is the message. Doctor Who's the vehicle he's going to use to bang out this message to a more younger youthful generation. Now, I'm not saying that's the case. I'm not even saying that I believe that. I'm just putting that out there. But there has to be a reason why a highly successful millionaire, and he has all the money he'll need, would choose to come back and run the risk
of ruining his own legacy.
Hold on a second. Because throughout history, people who return to things are never as loaded as they were the second time as they were the first.
Yeah. And can I just say, while we have this little interregnum, hello, Lord Thoth. Nice to see you. Nice to see Dada Debasa again. Obviously, welcome Cinnamon from earlier. Thanks to good to see Sadako again and Archibald Lazarus. Good old thread going there. Money was shouted out when John, you asked the question.
Yes, but remember, yes, he has money. Does he want more money? He doesn't strike me as that sort of person.
It's
He's not
ego.
a murderer.
It has to be ego. Has to be.
I would say
You
ego
look
is
at
not
you look at the
yes.
specials. That was him massaging his own ego. As you said, John, he hasn't given us that and really new during these first, but he keeps referencing his old stuff. And I said if he did that, that was very dangerous. Anyway, he needed to do something completely different here. And so far, from what we've seen, he's not doing that different. And I'm a bit worried. Look, like Michelle and everybody else on the panel, we want this to work. Of course we do. We want Doctor Who to stay on TV. But Michelle did say something interesting about, well, season 1 will be about them finding themselves, and then season 2 they'll rectify the mistakes. Well, I'm gonna say this, but that to me wouldn't be a good enough reason for failure, because he's had 4 years or 5 years previous. So you couldn't use that excuse with RTD, because with Chibs you could, because it was his first time stepping in as showrunner. This is RTD's second time, so he can't be given that luxury. He has to hit the... Go ahead.
Particularly, just saying, but I just agree with you there, because particularly his first attempt at a first season, he'd never written Doctor Who before, the BBC hadn't produced Doctor before, was a roaring success. So he should know what he's doing.
He should, but that's the sad part of it too. Because I don't know, are we having too many, cooks into making the soup? That's why I'm concerned of it. He's being told by too many people. Oh, put this in. No, put this in. Say this. No, don't say this.
I think though we're having less of a committee than we should have. I think the showrunner thing has always been a bit risky. I think while I said that I dislike the arcs, I think he was the best showrunner that we've had. I think his arcs, as has been said in the thread, you could follow them, even if it was retrospectively, as opposed to, as John was saying about Moffat's. So I think it's always going to be risky, but then it was Russell T Davies as a showrunner. Now it's Russell T Davies as Messiah.
Yeah. Now, Robin, you've been champing at the bit.
Yeah. Sorry, just to step back what John was saying, that New Who doesn't need story arcs. They tried to do that with Series 11 with no story arcs, and it was a massive failure. It was, like I said, it was like the beginning of like a downfall. So I'll disagree. It needs a strong story arc. But yeah, Series 11 was just a mess. It's awful. Yeah. And then going back to what Noel said about him retreading previous ground, I understand your point, but the fact is he was bringing back, that was the reason why he was doing it. He was bringing back a returning Doctor who was meant to be the 10th Doctor, but older and more experienced, and Donna Noble. So in a way, there was a reason why it was retreading old ground, because it was intentional to do that. But I do agree that it was a mixed bag. It was a mess. And also, I do agree that some parts of it weren't needed. Like the whole thing, like, well, if you were a woman, you'll still understand. Like, even people of their trans identity, which is saying, hold on a moment, that wasn't needed, which is quite surprising. You'll think they'll defend it, but some of them were against it. And somebody on YouTube actually made an edit where they cut all of that out about him, not being a woman anymore, so he couldn't understand. Yeah, I agree. That wasn't needed. It wasn't. It was a great episode up until that point.
Yeah.
Rob Blue Yonder tried something different. I wouldn't say it was like a midnight, kinda, but at the same time, it was trying something new. But the concept of it was, the execution was better than.
What about what?
Sorry, the other way around. Yeah.
All right. What about Real Super Doctor here? Hello. Russell Davies, his only agenda is pushing, pandering. It seems to be less about the stories, more about the agendas. Now, we've started the show half an hour ago, and I'm trying to veer us off it, and we all keep coming back to it, don't we? It seems as to be that what Russell Davies has done, and one of his strong suits I thought was PR and marketing in the first iteration. It seems to be he's so blemished everything that each one of us is trying to be disciplined, but we keep coming back to the message, where he's going with it, and so I understand what you're saying. Real Super Doctor, Sadako 24. I think the intended arc of Series 11 was meant to be about the journey of Graham and Ryan's grief over Grace. Yeah, the key word in your sentence there, Sadako, is meant. Did anyone notice it?
Can I say something about that? Just because, and I thank Robin for responding to what I said. It's not that I don't think Doctor Who needs story arcs. I just don't particularly care because I'm old and it's stuck in my ways. So therefore, I'm not really been used to it. But I think the failure of season 11 is a lot more than the lack of a story arc. We summed up in 2 words: Chris Chibnall. Now, I'm going to say something here. It's quite revolutionary, quite new. He was a hack. Doctor Who.
I agree.
Was written and showrun by a hack. Now, as you mentioned, I don't want to make this about Chibnall, but the showrunner whole setup now is a very difficult one, very dangerous one, because we're now come out of the frying pan, perhaps, of Chris Chibnall being a useless showrunner, into the fire where we have a very adept showrunner who is so powerful, who is so good at what he does, who is over so much of the brief that nobody's willing to tell him, perhaps, too far. Stop that. Maybe not, Rhett. And that's where the problems may continue to come from.
Now, just adding to what you were saying, John, garbage here. Russell is a genius at inserting political messages and hiding them. But this time, RTD is doing a Chibnall and throwing them down our throats.
That's the issue. That is exactly it on the head. See, we never minded, I have to point this out because we get accused that fans like us are not down with message and all of this. So Doctor Who has always been very political. It always has. But the writers were very clever. They knew how to to put that message out there, but it didn't affect the story. They incorporated it into the story in a clever way. This is what RTD is failing to do now. He's not doing what he did in 2005. He's actually doing a Chris Chibnall. That's exactly what he's doing. That's what we call it now. It's a Chris Chibnall, right? He's not even putting any thought into it. This is why he got called out. Robin said about the trans community. Like, the trans community called him out. They were upset with him because he just pushed the message but didn't put any thinking behind it. Didn't think that this would have a negative impact or would upset people, and that's the problem that we have. This is why we keep going back to that, because that's the main issue we have with him. He just can't keep his mouth shut, and he has to keep going on about the message. Why not just concentrate on writing the best Doctor Who possible so we can all get behind the show? So every Saturday, instead of dreading Doctor Who, we could sit down with our families and friends and enjoy it, and then come on to panels like this and rant and rave about it as a Doctor Who fan. That's all I've ever wanted, right? I wanted to go back to those days where I was proud to be a Doctor Who fan, where I wasn't ashamed or embarrassed. Because if you're not ashamed and embarrassed of what we've gotten the last 5-6 years, right? Looking at what we've seen so far from RTD, what I'll say is, to be fair, a mixed bag, right? But I'm telling you, he has to step it up. He has to do better than what he did in 2005. And so far, I haven't seen any evidence of that yet. But like everybody on the panel, I'll go in and watch his 4th season and I'll give him a go, because I gave the hack a go. 3 seasons we gave that hack a chance. Every season we turned up, okay, this is the year, he'll get it right. And within 3 episodes, we were all devastated because we knew we were getting a pile of crap.
It was worse than ever.
I agree about Chibnall. I mean, like you said, it's we gave him a chance after chance. I gave him chance after chance. I've defended the Timeless Children in the past, but now I just think it's a load of old bollocks. Yeah, I was willing to go with it, but it's just a mess. There was no reason for it to happen. It was just done for shock value. Like, there's no need to change the origin. If it ain't broke,
It was the
don't fix
desire
it.
to leave a legacy, Robin. That's what it was. He wanted a legacy. The worst thing about Chris Chibnall wasn't so much that his son was children. He just couldn't write. He just didn't write properly. He couldn't create characters. But anyway, we're not talking about him. We're talking about Ross Davies, and this is the real worry we have. Doctor Who, in this iteration, is probably the iteration most dependent on viewers and money and making money because it's got such corporate backing now. So the showrunner should be going out of his way to embrace not only fandom but broader fandom, because I think ultimately, you know, it's us and our love who will spread the word about what a wonderful show this is, if it is. So you shouldn't, if he shouldn't be using it as a delivery service for the message, because the sponsors of this, be it BBC, Bad Wolf, Disney, or Sony, are out to make a buck. And if they don't, they'll pull the plug.
And my concern is that, God, this was your dream as a Doctor Who fan as a kid, that it would have more, you know, it would be more Star Warsy if you had the chance. That was your dream.
Right.
No. But what I'm saying is, let me finish a sentence before it's overanalyzed. What I was saying was, and to complete my sentence, was that when you were up against Star Wars and Buck Rogers and ITV, you did think your show would be struggling. And in retrospect, you knew you were wrong. When you look back, you think, no, it didn't need that. But at the time, I remember thinking, will Doctor Who survive going up against the A-Team? Will it go up against Buck Rogers and lose out? I was aware that the lack of money and the lack of that Americanization professionalism might lose my program. I was always aware of that. I know that's wrong now, but as a kid, you worry about that sort of thing. But the budget now that RTD and Disney have got, I think actually, unfortunately, means we've got lazy writing rather than, you know, so the stunts, the size of the cast, the explosions, the CGI can be better than ever, but the story isn't there. That's the problem.
I think there's a couple of things. One, I keep on going back to watching that program in terms of what Russell said, and I think the big difference between his writing now and his writing in 2005 is in 2005, he was joyous to be back. He was joyous to be bringing a program back that he loved. It was about making Doctor Who. I think if you watch the program, he talks specifically about being angry about politics. And obviously, he wrote year after year, and it's a sin. And I think the politics in them was absolutely fine and entirely reasonably placed. I think he's back and he's angry about the world, and I don't think that works with Doctor Who.
So you're not.
In many ways, he hasn't been the same since he lost his husband, and I mean that is a grief and that is a loss, and I understand that deep grief. Sometimes I think he views the world as a lot, and the world is dark. There's a lot of darkness in this world. I think sometimes he doesn't always look for the light, and there is also a lot of light in this world too.
Yeah,
well,
I agree.
He gave us the shared universe. This was the other defense of him. He's given us Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures. He had an amazing crossover. We all know the climax to season 4 when he seemed to bring the whole Doctor Who family together. This is one of his strengths. Don't we give him leeway that he can do it again with Mrs. Flood and all the characters he's building up now? Beep the Meeps in, the boss has got it all planned, and you're not giving him leeway to think he can do it again. He's good at this.
But the main show has to be on solid foundations before you do a shared universe. It doesn't make any sense. Look, a Big Finish is struggling because Doctor Who is struggling. They've had to take a loan to stay afloat. Doctor Who magazine a couple of years ago under the Chibnall era, they were actually putting the subscriptions up for 80-90% off because the magazine was struggling. They were actually asking people to buy the magazine and buy these subscriptions. The main show has to be successful for the rest of these brands to be successful. So, sure, yes, he did well. I agree with you. I like Torchwood. Torchwood gets a bit of stick off Doctor Who fans, but I actually enjoyed it. The only season I didn't enjoy of Torchwood was the Americanized season.
Yes.
But I liked season 1, 2, and I love Children of the Earth. That's probably the best bit of writing in the whole Doctor Who universe. I'm serious, like that is up there. Peter Capaldi's performance as well. The cast he actually had in that was absolutely amazing. So yeah, he can do it, but he's got to get the main show right. Remember, we've had the 5-6 years of turbulence that we've had now. He can't be putting any other plans ahead until he gets this show on solid foundations.
Exactly.
What
I
I'm
think
trying
the
to
problem is that you're dealing with a very toxic fan base, especially younger viewers like
Yes.
myself. Like I'm more open-minded, I'm more willing to listen. But younger viewers there's like a sense of entitlement, and it seems like RTD is trying to cater towards them whilst also trying to cater towards older viewers, and it's sort of like clashing. Like he said a few months back before he became showrunner that writers don't write anymore, and the amount of backlash he got from that from like the younger fan base, it was like he was technically silenced in a way. And so he tried to backtrack that by changing Davros, and that just pissed more people off, myself included, because what was it someone said earlier, if you take Davos from the chair, he's just a man. Absolutely, a Dalek is just a robot. Davos is just a man. If you take him away from the life support system, it's not a real chair, it's what he needs to survive.
Do you know what?
And is a symbol of his obsession. You know, that Davros is in a chair because he is an obsessed man who would go to any length in what he was doing. How do you get that across now? Does he wander around with a big sign saying "I'm really obsessed"?
What about right? Let's. I mean, I'm going to continue to be fair for those people who watch and think, judge us. So
we are really trying hard to be fair.
We are.
I am trying, but it's kind of very hard when he's not giving us answers to shout and scream about at the moment.
But
we people are going to be upset about anything. So I mean, sometimes you just got to go for it in life. We are trying to be fair, but this is also our opinion. We have a right to our opinion.
Yeah, well, thank you. As we're trying then to go with what you said, Michelle, Culture Pop with B Hop said, shout out to the Sphere. Love listening to you guys discussing Who. So as you said, Michelle, we're trying our best. Now, I'll give you a few defenses of RTDs for us to chew on. The family focus. Now, we all missed Bernard Cribbins, and Bernard Cribbins was well established, of course, anyway, without Doctor Who. But his inclusion in Doctor Who was down to RTD. And so part of his coming back and it being a very sad last performance, etc. But we're grateful for his inclusion. You've got the Tylers, etc., the new monsters he brought back. I mean, he's a good designer. He designed the Oods, didn't he? He didn't design Weeping Angels. I know that's Moffat, but it was his era. So you've got, and his links to classic Who. He brought back Sarah Jane. He brought back K9, he had the Autons. So if I just say those three and see where we're going to say, well, okay, but we've had 4 specials now, and have we got, are we seeing you can do it again, or we're seeing problems? So the family focus, new monsters, connections to Who.
The family focus is about what he's doing right. I mean, the Ruby Sunday family were delightful. Grandma, I just love Grandma. Grandma was a delight. Even parts of the Noble family are absolutely adorable. I really connected with. I liked the Rose character up until the whole point of you're a man, you know nothing. Because there was parts of her life story of trying to look at other ways to raise money, having. Trying to make it in this world is relatable, because I mean we're all struggling financially. I'm looking at other revenue streams too, so that her story was relatable up until the part of, oh well, you don't understand because you're just a man. Well, he was a woman 5 minutes ago.
Anybody else? Are we giving them?
So I think one of the things, and John said this before about bringing the nobles in and creating that family atmosphere. So we mentioned soap opera earlier. I think he did, whenever he brought that back, do soap opera in an entirely reasonable fashion for it. Okay, I will object to some of the the sexualization of the Doctor, etc., but not of the companions as such, and not of what was going on. I thought, again, that extended on to the nobles, which I think was brilliant concept in terms of that, and was moving. So yeah, I think he can do that whole making it more relevant and more soap opera without it being just a soap opera, and he's very good at that. Whether that happens now, I don't know. And Michelle's right. I think the family setup in the Christmas special was good. You obviously didn't get a chance to see much of it because it was a Christmas special and stuff like that. So story took over from there. I hope that we get more of that, but done in the same sort of way as showing the family and showing the impact, rather than showing here's a family that symbolises tick boxes 1, 7, and 43.
She just wanted her tea. She just wanted her tea.
Look, we're talking about the family, and he can do the soap well. But as it was said in the margin, Rose Noble, we've now got Rose Noble. But as Archibald Lazarus said, she's got no character. This is unusual for RTD. His first era. Now, Robin, I'll let you come in first because I could see your face then when I said that. But we want to have a diverse range of opinions. So obviously, I've said something that's not quite matching there, so that's the whole point. But I'll put it up first of all. Archibald Lazarus said RTD's characterization has gone to pot. What character has Rose Noble got? It's all identity taking the place of character. Now, before I let you speak, Robin, I do feel a little bit like that. The Rose Noble, mostly in Star Beast, it was all about the pronouns thing, and then in the Giggle, she just got a few lines about, we're better than men, and then the bit about what's she eating for tea. I mean, there was nothing there, and that's not down to her. I'm not slagging off a trans character. I'm not slagging off the trans actress. What I'm slagging off is the writing, like Archibald Lazarus. Robin?
Yeah. I do kind of agree. Yeah. I must admit, she was likable up until the point where Michelle said, oh, you're not a woman anymore, so you can't understand. I didn't mind up until that point. After that point, I was just like, okay, yeah, that wasn't needed, but fair enough. Like, to be honest, I'm very optimistic. I won't lie. I'm willing to watch any showrunner, anyone's the Doctor. If it works, it works for me. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'll just watch it, move on. That's how
I'll be fair with him. He started off giving that character some character development and then just decided to give up.
Yeah,
that's what it felt to me. It felt like.
Can I come in at that point talking about that character? The problem with that character is I think that character was devised and they are simply for message delivery rather than to be there for the plot or whatever. And as a result of that, it's badly cast. So because they decided they want a trans character, they have a trans actor playing it, and the trans actor just can't deliver. So it just cheapens the show. It dilutes the experience, and it just makes it look. Doctor Who was always accused of having some iffy acting back in the day, but a lot of what we did iffy was still better than what that trans actor did in the Star Beast. So there's the issue. If you start with the intent of I want X, Y, and Z in it, which means I've got to employ X, Y, and Z to play X, Y, and Z, and then you write a story around it, you're not exactly playing to your strengths. And that doesn't bode well for the future of Doctor Who. So Rose Noble, although I love the families in Doctor Who, I've always have. I love the Nobles and the Tylers especially. But I thought the Rose character stuck out like a sore thumb. She didn't belong in that family. She looked as though she'd been placed there for a purpose, a writing purpose, rather than a plot purpose, a message purpose. And as a result, it stank.
And to be fair, John, because people might be new to us watching, and it links up with a few things where we were going with it as well, Robin, is I put this up earlier, and one of the defences or, tributes to RTD is his inclusion of LGBT characters. Now, I'm not going to get into the T's and the B's and everything, but the point is his inclusion of them is seen as, one of his strengths. However, we have just shown that we can say two things at once, which is his latest introduction doesn't seem to have sat very well. I mean, Torchwood worked fine. You know, we Captain Jack. You know, we've had.
Red to black and back.
Yeah, of course.
Just on what you've just said, yes, absolutely. Include and have more diversity. Absolutely, I'm all for that. I'm a gay man myself. However, if you look at a trans character and you decide for whatever reason you were a trans character in the mix, fine, but have a real reason for doing it, and if because of the thinking that's done now in this thing, you insist on having a trans actor who can't act to play the part, then you're leaving yourself open to a wide variety of criticism. For example, did we need a trans actor to play Rose, Rose Noble? According to RTD, we did, but apparently we didn't need a white actor to play Isaac Newton.
Exactly, but you've missed the point, John. Look, Garbage said Rose was beautiful and gorgeous and amazing and gorgeous and amazing and fantastic and incredible and amazing and beautiful. That was the message. Didn't you get it?
So the other thing, obviously, to link back to his earlier stuff is, I think, again, what you do is you include. I disagree with John slightly that the person being trans, the person being gay, the person being sort of I don't know, whatever. It doesn't have to be the point of the story. I think it can be a point to the story, but if you take Midnight, which I think is best episode, the character is gay. Her wife has left her, but that's it. I mean, it's gone like that. It's just inclusion of a character who happens to be gay, who isn't played by a gay actor in terms of that, because it's not really important to the story. And I think you just go, yeah, fine. That's a nice way of inclusion. That's how inclusion works. It shouldn't be the story, because we should just include people. I've been watching Grantchester. I don't know if anyone watches it, and it's quite interesting because it is quite about inclusion, but it's done this really weird thing, which is it's got a whole story about a gay curate. It's set in the 1950s. It's shown as 1950s realism, except it has colourblind casting and has a black woman professor at Cambridge at that time, which is not even remarked on.
Yeah.
And I think sort of like you have to be careful about things like that, and that's where Isaac Newton comes in. Sort of like I honestly couldn't care less if Doctor Who was played by an elephant. If the elephant was good at acting Doctor Who, I'd be cheering on, saying great role, marvelous elephant.
Then they'd be going mad about the training of the elephant, like the PG tips. Remember that? But how do I pronounce this? For said a better actor would have made more of Rose Noble. I'm not too impressed with the unit chief scientist either. I'm not remotely convinced that she's the head boffin of a top military organization. Look, it's coming through the thread loud and clear that we are not anti the actual issue being raised or represented. We're saying that some of the choices being made of actors doesn't work. Although I have heard that some people, is it Shirley Ann Bingham, the unit chief scientist? Mm-hmm. I have heard people think that do. I've heard that's more of a balanced one. I have heard people praise that actress. I have seen the Rose Noble actress in Heartstoppers, and I thought she was equally plain, bland. So
she can't play as a 15-year-old. That's perfectly obvious. She's not 15, which is the age she's playing. So on the one hand, we're told we can only have trans actors playing trans characters, but apparently 15-year-olds can be played by 15-year-olds, whether trans or otherwise. What it did, the whole notion of this has meant that we're now discussing the casting of a trans character playing a trans actor playing a trans character, rather than discussing the plot. Noel said it 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
The joy of this is coming on here, and we can all fight the bit out about whether the black Dalek was better than the gold Dalek, whether the Cybermen should have done this and that instead of doing the other. And instead, we're discussing all of this. So, in essence, he's getting his way. If that is his way, we're discussing our message and agreeing or disagreeing and putting it all out there. So, if that was the intent, it's working.
Yeah.
Except we are absolutely trying our best. I was just trying to add to Hugh's point, actually, because one of the other defenses of Russell Davies is his experimental stories. Now, I had earlier mentioned Love and Monsters, but you had mentioned, Hugh, Midnight.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, he is good at that. And I didn't see Chris Chibnall do that.
That's what Chris Chibnall's era was. Every
Well,
single episode of the Chris Chibnall era was experimental. Come on.
No, more than that, Chris Chibnall was just like the character of Sky. He just repeated all the best bits of everybody else, but did it badly.
Yeah.
So we're trying to give him one there. What about his marketing? I mean, this is what's really interesting, and the difference between Russell Davies in his first era and Russell Davies now, whether we're judging him on only 4 stories and seems unfair, but everyone in our panel has said, and a lot of the thread, it's the marketing that he was really good at for series 1, 2, 3, 4. He's tanking it now.
Yeah, we thought the Doomsday thing was an aberration, maybe had been commissioned and signed off well before he joined. You know, that thing with that dreadful woman.
Doomsday?
I think it was Chris Chibnall's cousin. I don't know who she is, but we assumed that was the outlier, that now that he'd come on board, stuff like that would be scored out, ruled out, wouldn't happen again. But I'm not so sure now.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with the marketing. I do agree. The RTD marketing era 2 is definitely better than whatever Chibnall was doing. There was radio science for months.
Yeah.
It was awful. And some of the graphic design, I'm a graphic designer myself. The poster for Legend of the Sea Devils is one of the worst things I've ever seen.
It was in keeping, though. It was in keeping.
It was awful.
Just like the episode.
Robin,
don't get me started.
Robin, with the graphic design thing, you know, we see Shooty with all these colours flowing out. Flux had all the multicolours.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm finding this offensive. It's just too much.
Yeah.
It has no atmosphere.
I agree. Like, there needs to be more, and some of the lighting and stuff, like, it's just crap. Like, lighting is very important when it comes to graphic design and posters and stuff. You want it to look realistic. Like, you wouldn't have a Hollywood movie throwing out a poster like that of Legend of the Sea Devils because it looks unappealing. It looks fake as hell. And just the composition, the layout, it was just like they just got a bunch of PNGs and chucked them on, stuck a filter over it and said, there we go, there's a poster. And got paid God knows how much for it.
Oh, do you know what? We are trying. If you've just joined us, I don't know, Raymond Williams, if you've just joined us, but if so, welcome. But we have been trying for an hour now to actually be positive, but we keep getting pulled back. Now, Raymond, but you make another good point. If I was doing a news show tonight, I'd mention this. The actor that played Doom, Suze Kempner, has now confirmed she got the job because of RTD. She had no audition in 2024. Honestly, I cannot believe it. Jamie wanted a job at the BBC. I wanted a job at the BBC. How many people wanted a job at the BBC in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and didn't get it? And now in 2024, when there's more people on the planet, massive population in Britain, and without an audition.
Yeah, because she has a message. She supports trans rights and she's a feminist, and she's very vocal on social media. It's the only reason why she got a job. She's not getting the job because she's talented, right? I'll say it out straight. As a comedian as well, she's pretty awful. Okay, the bottom line is this woman should be nowhere near Doctor Who brand, but she is, and that's unfortunate. Unfortunately, what's happened with Big Finish and Doctor Who, we have a lot of talentless hacks in the on our franchise that are working within our franchise. As for the promotion, yeah, it's better than what Chibs gave us over the last 5 or 6 years. But if RTD, I don't know, this could be a bit of complacency on his behalf. If he thinks that the Doctor Who brand name is still going to bring people in, well, I think he should really go and look what's happened the last 5 or 6 years, because that is not going to be the pull for bringing people in anymore. He has to be spot on with his writing now, and if he's not,
time, he's given such a runaround at the end. It's not a particularly good story. It's not a particularly good iteration of the Master. They turn Russell on into a baddie.
Yeah.
which again, if you talk about canon, breaks canon, and you might understand why they wanted to do that, but then you have to go and think, well, why would Rassilon suddenly become wicked and evil and bad and all the rest of it? And that's never properly explored or explained. So yeah, I would get rid of the specials purely because the first one as well, Beast one, the I forget what's
Planet of the Dead.
Yes, Planet of the Dead, and again another runaround. You know, I'm minded to think of my favourite Doctor wearing this scarf in season 18, and there's a sense of doom, gloom, and despondency building up to his departure all the way through Warriors Gate, Keeper Track, and into Legopolis. Whereas, you know, although we have Time Lord Victorious and all that sort of stuff coming at the end of Waters of Mars, it's all a bit frothy at the end of Dennis. It's all a bit frothy and a bit, you know, as if it didn't really matter. There's no real sense of it mattering what the Doctor's doing, you know. And ultimately, although I like the fact that Tennant regenerates because he's saving one person, I think they blow that because essentially, amidst it all, there's too many bangs and flashes and Gallifrey and Rassilon, all that going on. Whereas if you go back to the case of Androzani, when again the Doctor regenerates again because he saves one person, Pippa Gilliam Brown, that's a lot more low-key and as a result has more impact. So yes, I get rid of the special season.
And just to throw mine in, do you know what? I'd get rid of season 2. I couldn't stand the Daleks v the Cybermen. That was fan fiction nonsense. It was like a bitch fest between the two arch enemies. You know, I just thought it was a joke at the time. Every fan, I suppose, went, oh, yeah. But I just thought when you got the Daleks v the Cybermen in some garage of unit, it just, I'm sorry, you were just doing fan fiction. And from that moment, you've got the seeds of all the nonsense that happens. I mean, look at Flux. We had some tyrants thrown in with this, and in the end, fan fiction gone mad when Chibnall thought, well, you did it, RTD, so I'll mix up all the monsters. Crazy. Don't do it. Even in the 5 Doctors, you had the Yeti separate to the Cybermen. They were all separate. Whereas throw them all in and apparently the fans will love it more. No. So season 2 did that. But the big one about season 2, which I loved at the time, but in retrospect, it sowed all the seeds. It was all the relationship stuff. I love you. David Tennant's Doctor was about to say, I love you at Bad Wolf Bay. All that stuff has ended up sowing the seeds.